Okay, so what we want to do is build the wall so our player doesn't fall off and fall to infinity. So I'm just going to do a little bit of cleaning up here. Always forget to mention, but make sure you save. The good thing is that the scripts will always be saved pretty well. But if you've made any changes to your game scene, then you need to make sure you save it there. All right, a little bit, let me make sure that things are reasonably clean in here. I've got a script that's kind of sitting out. So I'm going to grab my camera controller, throw it in there. Okay, looks pretty good otherwise. Now what we want to do is add some walls. To do that, I'm going to show you a couple things. One is down in here, I'm going to create something called a empty. Now an empty, you can almost think of it as a folder for your game objects, okay? It just has a position, and then we can sort of hide things into that. So we can parent and child relationships. So I'm going to create an empty there. And you'll notice on here, all it has is a transform. So there's nothing really there. Like if I click on it, there's no physical thing there. I mean, I could add components and make it whatever I want, but at the moment, there's really nothing there. So what I'm going to do is make sure I reset everything. And the important thing is that it's set to 0, 0, 0. Okay. And what I'm going to do is change its name, and I'm going to call it walls. Okay. So that's where all the walls are going to be placed. So what I'm going to do with that selected is add a game object. And the game object that we're going to add is a 3D object in a cube. So again, we could add it up here, or I could have done it down here. Okay, either way, add a cube. And so that cube comes in. I might as well just reset its position too. Reset position. Okay, and it's right. Everything's sort of right here at the moment. Now, obviously, what we want to do is make this much bigger. But before I do that, I'm just going to change its name because cube isn't very intuitive. I'm going to call it West Wall. Wall 1, Wall 2. It's going to go on the left side, so I'm just calling that the West Wall. We're going to change its size up. So I believe here we're going to play around with the scale. And the scale, to get this to work, the X, we're going to make it a little bit thinner, 0.5. Okay, so it's a little thinner. We're going to, on the Y-axis, we're going to make it a little taller. Okay, so it's a little bit higher. And then on the Z, which is sort of our, sort of going from back to front there, it is going to be much longer, about 20.5. Okay, and then I'm just going to shift it over. So this is obviously, like I said, the West Wall here. Now, I'm kind of rotated here. This is why this is a little bit confusing. Let me move this way. Okay, so now you can sort of see it better there. I'm basically going to shift it to the left. And again, I can bring that over. I want it right at -10 there. So I'm just going to type that in. There it is. So there is our West Wall. So if I zoom out a little bit, you can see it just sort of goes over each side. It should be fine. Okay. I don't want to do that whole process again. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to duplicate it. So my West Wall, I'm going to simply, I can come up to here, I believe, and where is it? Sorry, under Edit maybe, duplicate or Control D. Either way, I've got another wall. So I've got West Wall 1. Well, let's call this East Wall. Okay, so it looks like there's only one there at the moment. It's obviously just hidden underneath, so I can just drag it over. Now, this was right in the center. That was a good thing about making sure everything was set to the origin. So I know this one has to be exactly 10 as well. So that's all I have to do. Okay. Now, at the moment, it's sitting outside my little game object here. So what I can do is drag each one in so they become a child of the wall's parent. And if I click on that, you can see they're now hidden underneath there. So I need to create 2 more walls. Pick either one, East or West Wall, and then we are going to duplicate it again. So this time I'm going to use the hotkey, Control D, and I've got another one. So this one we'll call North Wall. So obviously we have to change its position. So I can kind of move it back to the center. So on the x-axis, I'm actually going to set it to 0 here. Okay, so that puts it back in the center. I am going to move it up on the z-axis. I believe, because we're dealing with a square here, I should move it to 10 positive, this is north wall. And then obviously I have to rotate it. So if you sort of think about it, you want to spin it on, sort of from the top here on this y-axis. And hopefully from math, we should be able to rotate it 90 degrees and it fits in perfectly. So I'm just going to take a little look at that. Remember, you can press F to focus in. Looks pretty good, right? So it matches up at the ends there. One more wall, south wall. So I'm going to duplicate my north wall since it's already rotated. Control D, duplicate it. Let's rename that. And then, it's, let me make sure here. Good. So its position, right? It's just going to be -10. Okay. So if I zoom out, perfect. It's there. So now I've got these walls. A couple little things just before we end this. So obviously they're all named. Make sure they're all in this walls thing. Like again, it's not critical. It just keeps things organized. And you could imagine, again, if we had a more complicated game, this would start to sort of disappear off the screen. It'd become kind of unwieldy. So we tend to sort of group them. The nice thing too is if I clicked on these walls and I wanted to get rid of them for some reason, because they're the parent, if I remove the parent, all the children disappear as well. So just sort of an organization and helps you work things out. Each of these walls, just to sort of point out here, obviously they have a mesh renderer because they are visible. They also have this box collider on it. So if I sort of zoom in on them, it's a little hard to see because that yellow, or sorry, the orange shows up. But you can see right there, there's that green line. If I turn off the box collider, that kind of disappears. Okay, if I turn off the mesh renderer, it all disappears. That box collider, put the mesh collider back in, it's sort of what's making it, giving it that value. North wall, there we go. Okay, so that box collider helps you sort of visualize what's going on. You could edit that box collider. We won't here, but you could change its shape. Bunch of different stuff you can do. Okay, but now let's just play test to make sure we can't fall off. So I hit play. So now I should be able to hit the wall. And I did. And I did. And good. Okay. So we're pretty well set up for our game. The last thing that I'm going to have to, well, not last thing, but the next thing I'm going to do is make sure we've got some game objects that we can pick up. So we're going to come back, create our player pickups. We'll probably just do that in one video and then get some scripts so we can actually get some points for them. All right. So we'll see you in the next video. Make sure you save.